Brayden Ainsworth, welcome back.
Egan Brooks, thanks for having me, mate. How are you?
Good. What's been happening since the last time you come on?
Mate, a fair bit. When was the last time?
I think it was upstairs in my bedroom.
No,
You came to
yes.
We did the 10 lessons, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was at the end of last year. That was a good episode.
So, mate, a lot. Obviously, it's been nearly 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time's flying, hey.
It is flying. Mate, a fair bit. Went on a little trip to Gold Coast. Came back working. Still running the workshops. That stuff's going really well. And then, mate, just loving life. Running, training, lifting, working. Yeah, catching up with good people.
How do you find doing those live, workshops versus like a podcast? What's the difference for you?
I love podcast, and we actually had a good chat yesterday about it. But I love the fact that when you're doing a workshop, that you can actually engage, get so many ideas, perceptions from students, from adults. If I do adult workshops, it's just, I think it's the rapport you can really get with different people, hear different perspectives. Where I guess whatever we talk about, it's just mine and your. It's like just me and you, and there's no real. I guess there's a bit of playfulness, but you don't tease each other too much. You play around with the crowd. You give them tips, tools, strategies, and you don't. And I feel like it's more tangible than this, and you can see in their eyes, or you can see in their body language, or their, the way they sit, or the way they move, the way they react to certain things you say. Where a podcast, it's just me and you giving our perspective, giving our tools, or what's helped us to get to where we are, or what we're struggling with, and how we're coping with that. But you actually don't see if that is helping someone.
So you're more likely to get breakthroughs with people where they sort of come to this realization that something you're saying is quite powerful, versus us, it's more of like a reflection, and we're sort of in the space already, but for a lot of those people, these ideas are quite new. So yeah, obviously you came to my mayor of a talk.
Yep.
But it's hard. I find it so easy to sit down with people. I had an interview the other day with this lady, China, quite young, and we spoke for 90 minutes just back and forth. I didn't look at my computer once. I find that so easy. Some people would struggle with that. Yet I find it hard. I don't know, because it's like, we spoke about this the other day. Is it because of what I was talking about? I don't know, it didn't feel very authentic to me, which is on me, but it's like, I think sometimes we look at something so specifically and we think it's that. But for me, I think the problem with the talk was I wasn't speaking something that I truly lived and breathed, which is why when I talk to guests, I find it so easy just to have these conversations because it's so ingrained within who I am.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And mate, give yourself some credit. It was your first time, right, speaking. But I also feel that when you speak, the audience basically directs the conversation. I know what I'm going to touch on, at certain times, but you also know that you let them lead the conversation. Because the more engagement, the more interaction in a workshop, the better it's going to flow. Because they feel seen, heard, and they actually matter. And you double down on what they say. And then whatever they say, you flow on from that. So they sort of guide your conversation, where a podcast is semi-structured in a way. Your first time, and I did it my first time, is you don't, you hear someone, but you don't, it's not that you don't acknowledge them, but you don't flow off that. So when someone shares, I'm like, okay, you've been feeling annoyed lately. Why have you been feeling annoyed? And they'll be like, oh, because of this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, and then you go on from that, and then you can ask a few more questions. Then you can tie that into everyone else, and you can use, who else has been annoyed at their brother and their sister before? How did you react? And then you can go through that, and that's what I've found a lot. But it's also, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. So me and you sitting here, for me, I'm not, as book smart as many people, and obviously not as book smart as you. So I like to feed off the audience, what they say, they direct it, and then I make them feel more like they're running the show in a way. Where a podcast, you got to know a bit of knowledge. You got to know specifically a little bit about what you're talking about or the topic that you're talking about. And it is a lot easier if you are talking about what you actually implement in your life, because then you've got examples. You don't have to make things up on the spot. Whereas you're very, very book smart and very knowledgeable, very educated, and you can articulate that in a really good way. And then if someone says something, you can use that and put it into something else, which I think is a credit to you. But it's also really hard in that aspect to then step into arena to, I guess, start to develop into a speaker, if that makes sense.
I also feel like, because it was my first time, the mental load was much higher, which is interesting because it's almost like when you have the fear of failure, you sort of lose presence. Like you actually stop listening to what they're saying. And I've learned this lesson through my podcasting journey. Probably in the last 10 episodes, I've been really able to like sort of put away the computer a bit more, really dig into the guests and have a conversation. But that takes a lot of time and confidence to do. But what I noticed early on my podcasting journey is you don't actually listen properly. I remember just looking at my computer screen, thinking about what question I'm going to ask next. And I'm like, I didn't listen for the last like 30 seconds. And it seems so easy to be like, oh, just listen. But when you're podcasting, when your camera's running, when you've got everything running, you know people listening, you want it to go well. You want it to go smooth. You don't want it to be tension. You feel this pressure that you put on yourself. So it's a real skill you have to develop, which allows you to be present, listen, engage, be curious. But it's something I've had to teach myself over like the last 18 months.
It's also something that I've realized in your last probably 10 to, I reckon, 12 podcast. Your structure, it's still there. You can still tell there's a little bit of a structure to it, but it's more free flowing, and it's not about you. It's literally about the guest. And you're getting them to share their stories, their tips, their strategies, what they're going through, what they've been through, why they got to where they are now. And you can really start to listen and hear that when I listen to your podcast. And it's a credit to you and how you've gone from the structure, and I'm asking this question, okay, they've finished, now I'm asking this question. And the same in everyday conversations. It's like a meeting. Like you schedule, so a lot of people schedule 45-minute meetings, and it only needs to be 30 minutes. But what I mean by why people, because they drag things out, they don't listen, then they don't know their intention. Where I feel like at the moment, your intention towards podcasting is, I'm going to give them everything they need. I'm going to dive in on them. I'm going to give them the attention. I'm going to give them the validation. I'm going to give them my full attention. And then they feel heard, they feel accepted, and then they're like, oh, I can loosen up a bit here. And then they just can express, make them feel comfortable, relatable. Where if you just jump from question to question to question, they're like, this guy not even listening to what I'm saying. And the same in conversation. That's why some people shut off, I feel, if you don't make them feel seen and heard, which is a big thing that I talk about. And it's so powerful because for so long I just was like, oh yeah, cool. Like I'd leave a conversation, have no idea what we're talking about. It's the same as remembering someone's name. There's tips to remember someone's name, but you just literally got introduced to someone. You had, hi, how are you? What are you up to? Rah-de-rah, minute conversation. You go and like, oh, was his name Steve or Ben? Or I just got no idea, because you're not listening. And it's that attentive listening that actually makes someone feel heard. And I go into a lot of conversations now trying not to say a lot. Get them to say something, because it's the best feeling when you walk away from a conversation and you're like, wow, he just made me feel seen, heard, loved, like I matter, and I don't even know anything about him. Like that's a feeling that I want to give everybody, that the conversation was about them and I made them feel good.
Yeah, I feel like part of my journey has been like, I think when I first started podcasting, it's like I went in, I was like, I really want to express myself, like, you know, come from that place of wanting people to believe in me almost. So you sort of search for that validation, probably subconsciously. Like you probably stop listening as much. You're getting ready to articulate your words in this, you know, Chris Williamson like way. You want to come across a certain way, but it sort of takes you away from like the true purpose. But communication, all this stuff, like it's actually a skill, and it's something I've learnt mostly from the doing, not just the reading. Like I haven't read too many books on like communication skills, to be honest. I think it's something I've really learnt. Like I've just from doing so many interviews and conversations and meaningful conversations, it's been a skill I'm unlearning. And there's so many like powerful little strategies like pauses and building upon what they say, validating what they say. But the conversation goes so much better when you actually like listen to what they say. But it does take time. And I think people don't intentionally go to like, oh, like they're trying to make it about themselves. But so I used to fall into that habit of doing that. And it wasn't because like, I don't know, I had a big ego, but it was almost because subconsciously the outcomes you're trying to seek from that conversation, you don't really truly understand them. But when you go further along self-growth and you really develop a bit of security and confidence in yourself, you don't really sort of start searching for that as much, which actually allows you to connect with other people. So it's a bit of a catch-22 because, it takes a bit of time to figure out.
And it takes time because we're not taught it. Like you go through your whole schooling years, and I just did a presentation, and she's part of the education WA system. She spoke before me, and she was talking about all these different things that are coming up and what students and teachers are struggling with. And one of them is she tried to emphasize the point that emotional intelligence is so important, emotional well-being as a whole, and everything that comes under that big cloud is so important for our students to understand and know and get taught. But the teachers aren't the ones to do that. And that's the problem, is they're there to teach English, math, algebra, science, S&E, whatever it's called now, geography, like all this stuff is what the teachers have been taught and learned. Like there needs to be communication skills.
That should be in English.
Hey?
It should be in English.
It should be 100%. And then there's emotional intelligence. And then there's habit formation. And it's how do we do all these things? How do you, like your body language, how does that actually like communicate? How does that help the conversation? Like all these sort of things that you need in your life don't get taught. But you start to learn once you, I guess, get out of school, when you have these conversations like you have, and you've built that over time. You can read books and then read the book and put it into action, but it doesn't come by just reading, by watching, by thinking. It comes by acting. And that's the key, I think, to a lot of your stuff is you read, then you apply it. It's like read, application, but it's also the fact that we don't get taught this stuff. And my communication skills were so poor up until 2.5 years ago when I started doing my role. It's the same thing, because you know how to build rapport, you know how to talk to someone and actually, I guess, have a deep conversation rather than that surface. So how are you? Yeah, I'm good. That's good. What are you out to? Nah, not much. Oh, that's nice. What are you up to today? Oh, I might go to the beach, but not sure. What a great conversation that is. Like, it's to build that and get it out of someone. But then part of communication is making them feel comfortable in that situation as well, which, yeah, like we said, we don't get taught these sort of stuff, and you start to learn it. But if we can get teaching, I know you've got some cool things coming up that's going to help that, which is bloody exciting.
Yeah. All right, let's dig in. I've got this. I was reading last night. Obviously, you introduced me to Breno Brown, didn't you? Yeah, incredible lady. And I read this extract, and I thought we could start it from here. I'll read it out to you. It's all about vulnerability, but I think the reason I love this is because I think it really spoke to me, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. So I'll read it, and then we'll talk about it. So she said, "A man in his early 60s told me, I used to think the best way to go through life was to expect the worst. That way, if it happened, you were prepared. And if it didn't happen, you were pleasantly surprised. Then I was in a car accident and my wife was killed. Needless to say, expecting the worst didn't prepare me at all. And worse, I still grieve for all of those wonderful moments we shared and that I didn't fully enjoy. My commitment to her is to fully enjoy every moment now. I just wish she was here, now that I know how to do that." And then she talks about rehearsing tragedy and perpetual disappointment, because I feel like I've fallen into that trap before where like struggling to enjoy the present moment, like this constant fascination with the future. And then now that I've read a lot of her work, I actually really think it comes to like this aspect of vulnerability. What emotion do you think people struggle to embrace the most? It's actually joy. It's actually to live in the moment, because it actually takes a lot of vulnerability. It's like being with your girlfriend. Like, loving is vulnerable. It's like, I don't know, all of these wonderful things in life, like there's the fear of losing that. It's like when parents have a child, and in the book, apparently 80% of parents look over their child and they start having these like visceral imaginations of their child dying or something like that because they're so scared of losing them. It's like on the other side of the best things in life is the fear. So it's like if we can't embrace that fear and be vulnerable, we're not actually going to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. Fear's it should be seen in so many different ways. Like it's a driver, it's a safety mechanism, it's that flight, or I always say this wrong, fight or flight response. But it can also make you do some pretty incredible things. And the fact that not living in the moment is, a lot of people, I believe, live in the past. Like it's the story. It's people like 30-year-olds that still tell high school stories and they're living in that. Like for me, it's like, I can still say, oh, I was a AFL footballer. Like that's in my past and I can use that to tell a story, but I don't live in that. Like that was part of me and I've accepted that side of it, and you can still come back to that, talk about it, all that sort of stuff. But it's not actually living in that, and that's not who I am. And the problem with a lot of, I guess, not being in the present is because a lot of it we're too scared to face who we are, what we're doing, and where we're going. Like looking into the future is a good thing. Like where you want to get to, what do you want to do? Like we had a conversation yesterday. Like I know what I want to now. I know where I want to be doing in the future. But like could be 5, 10, 15 years away. Where right now I need to be like, I'm loving my job. Like, I don't see it as a job. And it's sitting in that. I love the people I'm around, surrounding myself with. And I can be vulnerable. I can be open. I can cry with them. I can feel joy. I can feel happiness. But it's also not living in that past anymore. Living with, I guess, what people might say is like the shadows of who they are, and step into, I guess, the light of who they really want to be. But it's really interesting. And I'd love to see, I guess, your point on how you go now with things you've been through and your journey. Do you think you're living like in the past and parts of it, or do you think you're in the present or like a future thinker?
No, I'm actually going to ask you that same question, and we'll both answer it. It's like, when do you catch your mind drifting away from the present? Like, when do you find yourself digging into the past or starting to overthink the future?
A lot of it is when I'm actually like at night or when I wake up in the morning, which is really weird because a lot of what I do in the space I want to get into, especially, is like, am I wasting time? Like when I'm just sitting there, if I'm like reading, or if I'm like, is this reading actually helping me? Or I got up at 5:30 in the morning. Man, some people getting up at 4:30. Am I losing time? Am I losing, all that? That's when I start to, I guess, get fixated, and I'm like, oh, what if I'm still doing this in 5 years' time? Then that's when I start to overthink and perpetuate. And a lot of my thinking actually comes when I run as well, because I don't run with anything, so there's no stimulation. It's just me and my head and my thoughts. And on the flip side, that it's actually a really good time to reflect on what I'm going through, where I'm at, where I want to improve, what I'm liking in my life, the joy, the gratitude I have. But then also, okay, how can you excel your life? How can you get better in certain areas? But the past living as well, I've got to be careful when I talk and speak, because you can get caught up in, I used to play AFL and I went through this post AFL, the ups and downs, and then that can trigger when I see, I guess, situations, people, and in a way it brings me back into that, and I can sit in that for sometimes a long period of time, before probably 2 weeks ago, which is hard for me to talk about now, because like the last 2 weeks I've literally been focused and very driven to live in the present while keeping a focus on where I want to go, and my daily actions are helping me for the future, and self-correcting rather than like that self-sabotage, neglecting, all that sort of stuff. If that makes any sense to your question, I'm not sure. But if you asked me that question, I reckon 3 months ago, I would have been sitting in that a lot. But especially in the last 2 weeks, it's been very, very present, very direct, very intentional. And it's made me have a lot more, I guess, fun, joy, and smile, and just feel like it's like weird. It's like a weight's been just dropped.
I find it really interesting how you fall into the trap of over-identifying with the past, which a lot of people, even myself at times, I think that can stem from not fully trusting and knowing who we are, because we look to almost external things as the guide, because it's like, what have we done? Oh, I know, played a few games for West Coast. That's like what I did. So it's easy to grab a bit of self-worth, a bit of identity from that when there's moments of uncertainty. And we have to have faith in who we are. It's easy to sort of extract it from external sources, because, look, I do that all the time. It's just learning over time that not only is that fragile, but it's not really it's not a good, healthy way to live.
When do you feel yourself, man? Like, when do you just feel like you can literally have no mask, no filter, no worry about judgment, and just be who Egan really is? Who are you with? What are you doing? Like, when do you feel that?
I think the reason it's hard to remember a lot of those times is because you're so present, you almost aren't overthinking. Like, when I look back, it's easy to think about like the times where you had the doubts, the lows, but sometimes those highs, you're so present, you're so engaged, it can be hard to sort of look back and think about what you're thinking. You can only reflect back on how you were feeling rather than what you were thinking, because you're not actually thinking too much. I think I get that a lot with my girlfriend, because I'm able to be present. You know, sport sometimes, you know, you can get in that flow state at times, but then again, it can be the opposite. You can go into total overdrive and overthink. Exercise is a great example. Sometimes after ice baths. But to me, it's not just about what I do. I think it's like, sort of like, it's not even one isolated choice. It's sort of like a series of choices that give me some confidence, which puts me in a good mental state. But I don't know, there's heaps of little things, but it's something I think, honestly, I've done a lot of self-improvement in terms of like journaling, reading, but what has really helped me in the last few months is tapping into this idea of self-acceptance. And like, since I had Boris on, really investigating and exploring this spiritual side of myself, which I've really sort of closed off as like woo-woo. But I think it's really helped me embrace freedom, to drop my shoulders, to be who I am. Because I'm like, how many stories do we hear of these successful people who have money, have everything externally, but, you know, don't like who they are, or don't like the journey they've been on? Well, there's people who have nothing, who are the happiest people in the world. So it's like, there's something we're missing along the way. And I think I sort of have discredited the spiritual side enough. And it's not to say that I'm going to be meditating, I'm going to be that, but it's having an awareness to be like, I'm not perfect, I don't need to be. These mistakes help me learn lessons. Because I had a chat with China the other day, and she was speaking about how she feels like she can be present and enjoy a moment as long as she nailed like this time block where she had allocated. And I sort of countered her a little bit, and I was like, I totally get where you're coming from. That's what I used to be like. But then again, your enjoyment of the present moment is contingent on you performing. And I'm thinking that's relying on like the past to live in the present. And I think the problem with that is it becomes a cycle of living for your future self, in service of your future self. And something I've thought about with this spiritual side is, all you've got to do is train yourself to live in the moment, enjoy the hard things, whether it's ice baths or even the joyful moments. Like, if you have that awareness to live presently, it actually becomes a mental state that's easier to slip into. Because for so much of my self-development journey, it's been this constant, you know, promise of, oh, I'll do this and it'll get me this in the future. It's really hard to break that cycle. And that's the habit I fall back into when I'm feeling low. It's like, oh, if I just do more of this, it'll help my future self. Because it's scary to face the truth right now.
100%. And I feel like that's because a lot of people are living in the peak performance rather than the personal performance. And the peak performance is results, outcomes, right? What career, but it's also having discipline and all that comes under that peak performance. But and they're all great, like wanting to get this job, wanting to get this promotion, wanting to achieve this, wanting to achieve this goal, like get here in your life. But when you come back, you achieve those, and sometimes you, like you said, you feel crap. It's not as happy as what you thought. You don't get that massive hit of dopamine that's like, oh my God, this is amazing, because you haven't looked after the personal performance, the self-esteem, the self-respect, the self-love, living by your values, having meaningful connections, understanding your emotions. All of that is under that personal performance. And that's why I believe when people say it's all about the journey, not the destination, is because you're creating you. Like you're understanding your values, you're living by them, you're developing meaningful depth connections, you're having a good sense of self. And then biggest one in all of that, I believe, is contribution and purpose to help other people. And I feel like you cannot do that if you're dead set, just focused on results, outcomes, goal orientated, which is amazing, like I've said. But I think, and I believe strong-heartedly, that you got to get the personal performance right, ticked off, to then help you propel to get to these accolades, you can call them, and achievements. And then when you get them, you still actually feel good about yourself. And you can keep moving on rather than achieving it and still feeling empty.
Have you heard this is one of my favorite all-time quotes from Tony Robbins. It's like, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Yeah.
Because I fall into the trap of comparison when you start to doubt yourself and you're feeling a bit low for whatever reason. That is where you build resilience. That is where you build the personal strength. I think what people don't understand is you don't become a stronger person in the easier times. And I think that's saying you need to keep in your self-awareness so that it's sometimes as a coping mechanism through the difficulty, because when it's going easy, it's easy to have this limitless goals and visions, but it's when you're struggling and when things aren't going to plan, it's being able to understand and that's when you build the resilience. That's when you become a bigger, a better person. But that's the hardest time. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, the great Tony Robbins quote, I had to just get it up before, but it's hard times create strong men, and then it's strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, which just comes back to hard times create strong men, which is so important. And that's just not for men. That's for all humans. Hard times create good humans because you go through challenges, obstacles, you know how to deal with it. And majority is you actually don't want anyone else to be going through that as well, I believe. So it's weak people, weak men, weak females, whatever it is, are from the easy times where you grow, you get development, you get hardened from going through tough, hard times. And then you can become more resilient. You can bounce back from a lot more things. And I love Tony Robbins. He's a goat.
Yeah. I think what's really helped me, like prime example, yesterday. So I had a day yesterday where I wasn't going to do any work for Dad. I was just at home doing podcasts and business ideas. So it's a day where it's just me at home. It's really easy to drift off and because I think sometimes when you're around people all the time, it can actually distract you from yourself. So when I'm just me by myself, there's some really honest conversations. Doubts can slowly creep in. But then we had that phone call and it really rejuvenated me and I sort of reconnected me with my purpose again. But I find that interesting because it's like, it's so hard to do that yourself because it's like, I'm thinking here. So it's like, the reason I couldn't connect back to that purpose, because my purpose there is to create value for other humans, but it's almost like I had to connect with another human to realize that again, because you can get so trapped within yourself. But then when you start talking to people, and I don't know, for me, it's a lot of like, I do this all the time where sometimes I fantasize about the future so I don't have to live with the shame. Like oh, I'm going to be this. I'm going to achieve all these things. I have all these big goals. Because sometimes I set myself big goals to distract myself from the shame that I feel right now instead of going through it and dealing with it right now. So I think a lesson and saying I'm realizing is, okay, I feel a certain way. Okay, why do you even have that goal in the first place? Like, do I have the goal because I really want that for my life and I want to whatever? Or what is hiding behind it? What's the ego side of it? And a lot of the time, it's not feeling good enough. It's I want followers for this reason or whatever. So it's really uncovering deeper what is at the core of why you feel certain ways. But I think having those conversations with other people can really help you understand your purpose again.
Yeah, I want to break that down.
Yeah.
So go to a goal. Like, let's just start off. What was your intention with the podcast? Like, what was your goal? Was it to... Yeah, I'm not even going to put ideas in your head. What was your goal and your purpose for the podcast?
I didn't write down like a conscious goal. I think for me, it was like I wanted to express myself. I think that's like not like a tangible, I want this to be famous, but like there was the two aspects. There was like I wanted to express myself from like a personal level, but then in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I want this to help me facilitate a career in some sorts.
And what drove that?
I think there was a fear of not being understood. So I've been in so many circles, football circles, friendship circles, good people, but I've never felt connected for some reason. Never felt like I belonged. So for me, it was like, okay, if I can't connect with people in here, I'm gonna find a way to connect and learn.
Yeah. And how have you, I guess, worked through that part of feeling like you belong, feeling like you matter, and that feeling like your voice needs to be heard, or maybe not needs to be heard, but the fact that your voice can actually help people, your ideas can help people. How's your mindset shifted to that rather than no one wants to hear me, I don't belong, I can't connect with people?
Well, the biggest lesson I learnt there, which is what you've spoken about before, is just sometimes you're just in the wrong rooms. And it's really easy when you're in the wrong room to believe that you are the problem or it's you. And really easy to internalize how you feel and then start to feel shame for that. It's like, oh, I'm misunderstood. I don't really get along with these people. But I think it takes an element of courage. Like I had to have courage to start a podcast and put myself out there because I think there is no connection without courage, right? So it's like, it's so easy to, for me, I've done this before, go into the victim mentality of no one understands me, the world sucks, because I've gone there, I've been to that place. But you prevent yourself from feeling the greatest form of life, which is love, unless you can be courageous to put yourself out there.
And a lot of people can't find love, joy, peace, happiness because they're too scared to walk out of the room that they feel like they should be in, but even though they don't belong. And what I mean by that is, for so long, I was in rooms with people that believed that I was this, I was that, and I should be doing this. And once I closed that door and stepped into the next room where people actually believed in me for who I was, it actually made me understand that, man, I am okay doing what I'm doing. I love what I want to do. That part of me I don't want to do anymore. That room wasn't for me. This room is. And this room I've connected with some of what I would call some very, very close friends of mine now, some mentors, but also people that are living the same purpose and direction. And so many people throw the quote around, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with, listen to, read, or whatever that is. And it is true, but the fact that you can change those people whenever you want. And it comes back to having the courage. And it's the courage, you said, the courage to love, but it's the courage to love who you are, who you want to be, and I guess who you want around you. Because I believe that the people you spend your time with the most, deep down, there's a bit of love for them in your life. And if you're hanging around with people that you don't feel a strong, deep, a little bit of a loving connection, or actually want to hear about them, hear about their day, hear about what's going on in their life, then I don't think they're the right people for you. Because right now in my life, and it's really cultivated over the last 2 weeks, I've put together and worked out through journaling, through sitting by myself, my own thoughts, are the people in my life, people that I have the courage to love for, to talk to listen to, and they're not actually so-called wasting my time. And I know that might sound like people waste your time, but people don't waste your time. You're wasting your own time. You're wasting their time. If your intention is not to actually be with that person, not be present, not be engaged, not actually care what they have to say, well, there's half an hour of your day conversation gone if you don't really care. And it's like when you pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone. Like a big thing I'm doing at the moment is I call people if I need something, obviously, like at work and stuff. But I also call people to check in and see how they're going. But if they're busy or they're doing the dishes, or like driving's a little bit different, but if they're doing some sort of an activity where they're doing two things at once, I'll can the conversation. I'll be like, hey, what are you up to? Do you have time to chat? I'd just love to, listen, catch up, see what's going on. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this. And then you hear them cleaning. It's like, oh, you cleaning at the moment? Yeah, okay. I'll let you go and get back to me when you've got 10, 15 minutes. And that's where it comes back to, I believe that also is an intent to care, to help, and actually really dive into that relationship, connect more, and get them to open up, be free, and actually you can sort of dive into some pretty cool stuff when you're actually just sitting on the phone or just having a conversation, not having your phone there, not having any sort of, I guess, a distraction that can take you away from that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot to get into there. The first bit I'll get into is, I think a lot of the time we prefer this familiar hell. Like we have this toxic relationship with a lot of things in our life, and it's really hard to detach from that and believe the stories of the room that we're in. Like it's really hard to be like, you know what, like I deserve better than this room. It's really easy to internalize what people are saying to you, the stories that other people say, believe that is the truth.
Because you feel like you might upset them. And I don't want to upset them. I don't want to make them angry. So people stay in relationships due to that fact. They stay at jobs because of that. They stay in the same room because of that. They stay around the same people because we don't want to upset, hurt, or make someone feel terrible. But like I've said, you're literally staying in that situation, not happy, not liking who you are, not liking the environment, not liking the energy. It's not just impacting you, it's impacting them. It's impact on that relationship. It's not helping them get better, it's not helping you get better. So if someone gets upset, yeah, okay, you break up with someone you've been with for a long time. Like that's going to be heartbreaking, it's going to be upsetting, and you're going to feel probably pretty disappointed. But you're not serving anybody if you stay in that relationship that's you're not enjoying, that you're not liking, that you're not finding any happiness, passion, and love in anymore. You've got to step away because it's the best thing for both of you. Because you're literally hurting them by staying in that relationship, and you're also hurting yourself.
How do you think about calling people? Because I want to improve on that. Like you're really, really good at it, but I find it hard, not because I don't want to, but because I get stuck thinking for myself. I think that comes from the room to grow into who I am. Like I believe I can have more faith and belief in myself, security, confidence. So it's like, okay, I'm okay now. I can help other people. I can ring someone else, check in on them, because I love doing that. But I struggle to do that because like I get over-identify with my life, my story, which a lot of us do. But it's like, what specific thought processes or tools are you able to do that to sort of break yourself out of your own story, your own day, to ring someone else?
Because I drive a lot for my work, so I just call people in the car. Nah,
well, me too, but
yeah.
I call mum and pop a fair bit. So maybe I do it better than I thought. But then again, like with my mum, for example, like we talk mostly about myself. But the thing I found really hard with like my mum, for example, is like we've had a bit of a up and down relationship when we live together, like a bit of hostility. So sometimes it can be really hard to get a fresh start on a relationship. Like it's definitely improved a lot, but it can be really hard to like forget the past, because I think I hold a lot of shame. Like we've spoken about it. It's not like it's not spoken about, but I still think I carry a bit of shame and guilt for like who I was as a child, like this emotion and anger that I had towards her and these outbursts. So then like, I don't know, I find it hard to be like, I don't know, like, how are you going? What are you doing? Like I can with other people, because I feel, I don't know what it is.
For me, man, like, lay it all out. I've been through my own challenges, which you know, and some people know because I'm starting to talk more and more about it. And the challenges that I've been through and hitting what I would say was my rock bottom has made me realize I wasn't able to express myself because I didn't feel like I was confident, didn't feel courageous enough, strong enough, brave enough. But I also guess I didn't have someone actually outwardly say, man, I'm here for you if you need to talk about anything. And not because I was going through something, just in general. Like, I know you're in a good space, and I believe that I've made you feel like you could call me if something's going on in your life.
100%.
And I don't want anyone else to go through and hit rock bottom like I did. Like, it's a crap place, man. Like, I hated it, but it also made me realize, as much as I hated it, it was the best thing for me, because what I found during that process, especially a 4-week process, was helping other people that were in that same situation that I was in and surrounded by get back to being happy and healthy. And what that made me realize is there's so much time in my day to work on myself, to work on my career, but also to work on my relationship and make sure that there's a lot of people in my life that I can help, talk to, and even just check in on. And another thing is, man, like, a lot of my friends are 25 to 22, 25, and a couple of older friends. And it's sad and it sucks, but the biggest killer for youth under the age of 25 is youth taking their own life. I know a few people, unfortunately, that have. There's random accidents that happen, like, all the time, that someone could literally, man, get taken away from you like that in any circumstance. But for youth to take their own life, be the biggest killer, it's like, well, imagine if, for me, it's a hard thing to think about, but what if one of my good mates decided to do that and he didn't feel like he could talk to me? So I love to call people. I love just to check in. And a big thing for me also is, for 4 years, man, I was so selfish. It was all about me. It was all about, I need to stretch. I need to work hard. I need to work out. I need to put football first. So football became, there was 3 F's in my life: football, friends, and family. And I only focused on one. And that was my footy. Didn't really focus on my friends, on my family, even the ones I connected with at football. My real friends are the ones that have stayed around. And it's pretty funny to think about now that I've probably gone a really off track here, but like, I've focused 4 years on footy. Man, I hardly talk to any of them. Like, how many of them would I actually call good friends? And that, you know how you call some of your friends your brothers or your family. Not many of them. And outside of that, I've started to realize that I spent 4 years with them and didn't really build too many deep connections, too many great friendships. Like, 4 years is a pretty long time to hang out with majority of the same people and still not form long-lasting relationships post that. Where I've developed in the last 2 years, at least I can count easily 5 people that I knew that have come into my life that are deep, meaningful, honest, vulnerable, that know some of my deepest, darkest secrets that I've been through post-football, that people that I spent 4 years with, live with, don't even know. And that means that those connections I've built, those relationships, the way that I can construct that in a way through a phone call means a lot to me, because I do care about those people. Because I went 4 years of really just caring about myself, not caring about, like I said, friends, family that I guess I spent time with or grew up with. But like, a great example is, I called you yesterday. We talked for probably, within like 35 minutes maybe. in the afternoon, I actually had a call with one of my best mates. We've been like, there's like 3 or 4 of us that have been best mates since we were year 4, year 5. We had a 40-minute conversation. Like, for me, people might think, well, you had a 40-minute conversation with 2 people. Like, that's an hour and 20 minutes. Like, that's a waste of time. Like, for me, that's the best. It was actually when I wrote down in my gratitude book, what was 3 good things that happened to you today? I had a conversation with Egan for 40 minutes. We talked about such. I had a conversation with Jack for 40 minutes. We talked about this, and this. And then whatever that third one might be, it was. There's so many other good things that happened in my life. And the third one was my mum actually come to the first session she's ever watched me yesterday. All 3 of them are connecting with people. And for me, that's what I'm about. I'm just about connecting with people, helping people, and trying to make them believe in themselves, but also feel that they can express themselves, be open, be honest, and talk to me or talk to someone else. And for me, it's just, it's getting out of myself and realizing that the world is bigger than me. People are bigger than me. And all I want to do, man, is connect, help, and be what I would say a kind, decent, genuine human being that does actually care about people. And if that's through a phone call, if that's through catching up for a coffee, going for a walk, like whatever I can do, it's one of my favorite things because a lot of people there, close and deep people in my life were there in those challenging times, and I just want to be able to do that for someone else.
It's interesting on the other side of the curse of the harder times is this blessing now of empathy and understanding. But something I really took from that, because I guess we can relate a bit with being in footy circles but not feeling like deeply interconnected with the people. I think it's due to the fact that it's like we want to connect with people at a level that is much deeper than the average young man is at today. So while they are most of the people there are on a pretty similar level, and they connect with each other, they might think it's a deep friendship. But I think when you've really, really done a lot of self-work and had really hard conversations and gone into this space, I think you realise that that gap. And I think that gap, it's so easy to see. And I see it all the time and I'm like, this isn't real. This is like, we're just talking shit here. So I think when you've actually been in those situations, it just makes you understand that it's not a real true connection, which then breeds a bit of resentment because it's like, what am I doing with my time? You don't feel connected. So I don't think it's football the problem per se. I think it's the average person who plays football. But then again, it's two-part because it's like, I know for me, I probably shut myself off a little bit in those circles because I've gone in with premeditated sort of ideas of what the average person is. And it's true for a fair few people. But yeah, I think it all comes down to your level of connection to yourself, which sort of lays the groundwork for connection with other people.
Yeah, spot on. And I don't think you can connect with other people if you're not connected with yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't get deep with someone if you can't get deep with yourself. You can't get honest with someone if you can't get honest with yourself. You can't respect someone if you don't respect yourself.
It goes both ways because it's like sometimes human beings are mirrors to us. So like, for example, in relationships, like it's a big mirror to you and that gives you the opportunity to introspect. There's like this big feedback loop. But that's why other people allow you to grow so much if you have the courage to have those conversations.
Mate, 100%. The best thing that I've listened to lately is about regret. It's like, and it's sort of like, for me, do I regret my past, what I've been through, choices I've made, decisions I've made? No, I don't now because I'm proud of the journey I've been through, proud of the person I am, but I'm also genuinely grateful for everything that I've been through to where I am now. And that's something that I've had to realize because like I used to regret how I made a treat of people, how I treated myself, but it's because I hated that person that I was in that situation. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like what I was trying to be, what I was, I guess, trying to create for my life. I didn't like it. And I didn't like the person I was looking at in the mirror. Where now when I can wake up and look at myself in the mirror, I can feel proud because deep down I do believe that I'm becoming a genuine, kind, empathetic person that does care about other people. I never used to be that person. I never used to really drive those sort of standards in my life towards that. It was always trying to drive standards that other people wanted of me, that expected of me, which caused me to not like myself and like what I saw in the mirror. When now I don't have regrets because I'm extremely grateful for who I've got in my life, where I am, what I've been through, because that's what's created me. That's part of me. It's part of who I am. It's what's made me and shaped me to the man I am now. And that's something that I've had to understand. I think when people say they regret things, I think they regret the person they were in that moment rather than the actual moment itself.
The physical manifestations of it. What advice would you give to someone who probably wouldn't be listening to this, but like stuck in this cycle of being someone that they're not happy to be, but it's just who they are? They've sort of internalized this message now that this is who I am. You know, like I don't love who I am. I treat people wrong, but I guess that's just me.
It's a tough question because I feel like it's so different for so many different people, but I can only speak from my own experiences. And between, I guess, me and you, I think Tuesday is the first time, bro, that I've ever actually talked about in front of people I knew, in front of a crowd, my whole journey, what I've actually been through. That came from, I guess, a week before on a Tuesday after listening to one workshop that literally changed my perspective on who I was. And what I mean is I went to Dan Principe. I don't know if you've heard of him. He runs workshops about championing young men through social media sort of stuff, because you get consumed with all these different things, what it means to be a man, how you should treat women, how women deserve to be portrayed, all this sort of stuff. It's an amazing workshop. But one of the things he talked about made me really realize, I guess, the fact that I'm not accepting everything of who I am. And that was hard to sit with. But what I did was I just journaled. Why do I think I'm like this? Why do I think I'm set in these ways? Why do I have these belief systems? Why do I think that I'm not deserving? Why do I think that I'm only a person that does this? Why do I think that I can only treat people this way? Why do I feel like I can't deserve love? All these questions, and just journaling and just asking why you feel this way, why you think this way, why you act this way, and get to the core of it all, because a lot of it is from outside influences. It's all external stuff, not the internal. So for me, and as scary as it is, you've got to look inside and you've got to look internal, and you got to sit with that feeling, that emotion, and sometimes that mood might last like a long period of time. Like you might feel crap and sad for a long period. But being able to sit and discover why you do certain things, why you operate a certain way, why you think certain patterns, there's ways to do that with, journaling is probably my biggest tip. And it's one of the things is get comfortable sitting in your own thoughts by yourself. If it's literally just meditating at the ocean, going for a walk in nature, just get rid of any stimulation that you have. If it's on your phone, right? If it's whatever, just go and just leave your phone, leave everything, and just sit by yourself. Think of the thoughts, take a pen, take a piece of paper, and just write down all these things that come to you. It's probably, which is really scary to do as well. And I've done it a few times, but doing it, I guess 2 weeks ago, I keep coming back to that, is what really set me up. And I've never been, I thought I was happy, bro, but the last 2 weeks, I've genuinely been feeling joy, happiness, love, gratitude to a whole nother level. Due to the fact that accepting that I can change whenever I want. That's my choice. It's not anybody else's choice. No one else is going to make me change. I can't make someone else change. I can't make someone else feel like, I guess, I need this. I can't make someone feel like they need to validate me. I need to validate myself. I need to stand up for myself, and I need to embrace everything I've been through to, I guess, be able to change, develop, get better, and through that, for me is journaling and understanding my thoughts, my patterns, what I do day to day, why I do certain things. Because I feel like it all comes back to your experiences, your challenges, and what you believe and what you've been through is the easiest way to start to work out how do you change, how do you develop, and how do you get better. And it's all internal stuff. It's hard to do. It's scary to do. But you got to ask yourself those type of questions like, who am I? What do I like to do? Why do I operate like this? Do I even like what I'm doing? Can I actually be a kind, empathetic, genuine person? Why do I believe I can't be? What have I been through? What have I experienced? Or what has someone told me to make me believe that I can't be that person?
I think...
I know I'm rambling a lot here, but...
No. I think to complement that, my thing that I've been on is like emotional articulation and specificity with reflection. Because it's like, I think men especially, I feel shit. I feel crappy. What? Like, what does that mean? Frustrated, disappointed? Like, I think isolating specific emotions and developing coherence within that emotional toolkit is important, because then it helps you connect the dots to why you feel certain ways. Or else it's just like, I feel shit. And then like, what do I do to feel better? It's so broad. I think you have to realize is you feel a certain way for a certain reason. It's not just for nothing. So I think developing emotional specificity is so important for, I guess, just understanding your feelings and living a happier life. It helps with reflection. It helps with the day-to-day. Yeah.
I think the intent with the emotion as well, because you're going to feel angry, sad, frustrated, disappointed, overwhelmed, but then you're going to feel happy, joy. Like, you're going to express a whole range of emotions: bad, good, empowering, disempowering, negative, positive, whatever you want to call them. But the intention that comes with that is the most important thing, I think, of the emotion. Because an angry person is seen to yell. A sad person is seen to cry. A happy person is seen to smile. That's what we're growing up to believe in and see. But what's the intention behind each, I guess, feeling? Because mates are going to piss you off. When you get kids, they're going to annoy you. They're going to do the wrong thing. And you're either going to yell at them, or you can still intend to be a caring, loving father, mother, or you can still be a caring, loving friend. And what I mean by that is the way you feel determines what you think about determines how you act. So you might feel angry. You might think like, oh, my kids are whatever, or my mate's just being like whatever. Your action is your intention. Like, I intend to still be a caring, loving friend, or a caring, loving brother, or a son. So I might get annoyed, I might get frustrated, and someone might literally just like get me so worked up and frustrated that I'm thinking about some pretty bad thoughts, but I can still intend to be that type of person that shows love and care. And then my action in that is like, I completely understand why you might have acted this way. And then you can start to still develop a deep conversation to understand why they're doing that. And you can let them know how that, I guess, makes you angry. Because does a kid learn from getting yelled at? Like, does it make him feel better? Does it help him grow? Does it help their self-esteem? Or does it diminish that? Like, it might help them not do that thing again, but then they're fearful. Then they get scared. It's yelling at people and telling them off and things. It can be done in such a different way, and more of an intention to still be kind and genuine and empathetic and loving and show compassion towards the wrong action, if that makes sense. Because the intention with the emotion, I think, is so powerful. To be a kind, loving, caring mother, father, friend, sister, brother, whatever it is, it can still happen when you feel anger, when you feel disappointed, when you feel frustrated. You can still intend to be a very good, decent human being. And before you act, before you react, before you make a choice, a decision, come back to what that intention is.
I also feel like if anything in life triggers you, like in something else from someone else says or does triggers you, it's an opportunity to introspect, because
100%.
So I think that's what people fail. It's really like, my friend Claire told me about this thing the other day where it's like, if you start pointing fingers at people, you're holding 3 back to yourself.
That's so true.
Which is good, because you start pointing at other people and it's like, well, it's a reflection of you. It's a mirror. All right, let's wrap it up with a card. So,
Oh yeah, I mean
3 cards each.
all 3 cards. Oh, and then we
And then
choose
pick
one.
one. Pick
Oh,
one.
it's like you said wrap it up with a card, and here we go. Oh, that one looked good.
Ooh.
I want to keep that one. I got 4. Sorry.
That's right. Pick one.
No.
There's always one that comes straight to mind.
Well, I'm not a parent, so we can get rid of that one.
This is just sort of deep.
Ooh. Shit.
You want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Mine is I hope to be remembered for. It's a bit existential. I think that doesn't even need to be like me dying. It could be me leaving a football club. It could be me, I don't know, new job, not being involved with the same people. I think, how do I want to be remembered? I think, I don't reflect on this heaps, but I think to me it's pretty simple. I hope to be remembered as a good person. And to me, that looks like having a positive impact. And specifically for me, my sort of purpose revolves around education mindset. But I think generally, I just want to be known as a good person. And the specifics of that, like I said, are to do with my expertise in psychology. But I want to be known as empathetic, authentic myself. And it's a journey I'm on. But yeah, I hope to be remembered as a good human being. To be honest, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated than that. Like someone who wanted to change the world in a positive place and connect with other people on a deeper level. Something like that.
I love that. Love that. Do I answer your question or do I just go to mine, eh?
Yeah, just go to yours.
All right. I'm most proud of my family for, honestly, my family I'm proud of for sticking by me. And what I mean by that is everyone probably expects their family to stay by them, stick with them, no matter what. And for me, I'm so proud that they've gone through the journey I've been through and been in my corner the whole time. It's something that I've reflected on over the weekend, and it's something that I had very good conversations with a few people in my family about. And it's funny how I keep talking about 2 weeks, and then I've just had this conversation on the weekend with like my mum, my stepmom, my dad, my brothers, my sister, and people that I call family that aren't family. And I'm tying that into it. And for them to stick by me through times when I've treated them like crap, times when I've neglected them, times when I've been selfish and all about me, and they've still been there. They've still showed up. They've still supported. They've still cared. They've still showed love. They came and were there for me when they probably could have not walked out, but just taken a step back. And they didn't. They knocked the door down and took a step forward. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of them. But I'm also very proud of my family in the last 2.5 years have started to really develop these life skills of, man, we start to have deep, meaningful conversations. We actually get more than the surface level. Conversations with my dad, like just sending little messages in of, I'm so grateful that you're doing this. Like, how's your day going? What are you up to? Tell me all about it. I'm so proud of my family for those things. But the main one is just sticking by me through times where I was lost. Had no idea what I was doing, where I was, and I was treating them like they were irrelevant. Because at times I admit I did that. And for them to still be there, man, is something that I'm so extremely grateful for and proud of as them as humans to still be there when, yeah, their family so-called have to, but they don't. No one has to stay with you. No one has to help you. No one has to love and care and support for you. Like, it's not their job to do that. And people think it is just because they're your mother, your father. Like, yeah, they're meant to care and love. You're like, yeah, cool. But if you don't show that to them and they still stay there, and you don't be a good son or a good brother or a good friend in times in your life for long periods of time, and they still stick by you, that's some good people, man. And that's what I'm so proud of about my family, is they're still there for me, and they can still accept me for what I've been through and acknowledge that that wasn't the best Brayden, but also to support me to what I want to do now.
This is why when I was talking about my own experience with my mum, it's the exact same thing. It's like, it's the hardest to face when it's your family, because when they've been through the whole thing, there's a lot of shame for like the anger I had or the Brayden that you were. And so it's like, you can't just front up to this relationship and pretend to be this new person. Like, I meet so many new people, and it's like, they don't know everything I've been through and who I am, and same for me to them. But it's like, it's so easy to put on this persona. But then on the flip side of that is an opportunity for incredible depth. It's just, can we overcome the shame? Can we have the conversations? But it's so powerful that they've been able to help you. But it's like, fuck, it really helps me understand, you know, because family is different to like other people in your life who come and go. It is this like everlasting thing. And I think the powerful thing is family acts as this like almost this scientific study of relationships, because it's like so a lot of the time they're there. They can't leave. They're being with you. And you can sort of compare that to the people who come in and out of your life. And I think that one of the big noticeable things for me is like, because you've been so many different versions of yourself, it's so easy to carry shame and be like, oh, they're not going to believe this new version. Like, I've had that before. Like, I think I had it with my mum probably a year ago. It's not anymore, but it was like, because I didn't think she believed that had changed as a person. And that was obviously like my shame speaking. But it's like, fuck, I think it's such a good, powerful opportunity to reflect on your own life, and you look at your relationships with people in your family, because you've been so many different versions over time. Compare that, how you show up to your family, to how you show up to other people right now. And I think that'll give you an indication to how you're dealing with the self-acceptance component. Because if you show up differently to your family to who you are with other people, maybe you're carrying a bit of shame, so you sort of fall back into old habits.
Shame and guilt are two of the most crippling things that'll hold you back, I believe. And I know, because I went through it. Like, and your mum might not have realised or believed that you'd changed, because she might not have seen it. Because you have to see it to believe it. And I'm strong on that. Like, I can say whatever I want to you. Like, I'm a good friend. I'm a good guy. And then I leave and my actions don't do that.
One star rating on the potty.
Yeah, like actions speak louder than words. And it's true.
I think, here's something I'm sort of trying to disentangle with fucking mindset, spiritual self-help, whatever you want to call it, is
the floor of whatever you want to call it. It's like self-growth and developing all these.
Dude, self-growth. Self-development, personal growth. Fuck me, the same.
What is it? Optimization.
Yeah, fuck, I don't need. But it's like, what was I saying before that? Now I've forgotten.
Sorry,
I've forgotten what I was going to talk about. What was I saying? It's a good point to wrap up.
I don't know, just edit it in, just filter it in.
Yeah, what was it? What was the last bit we spoke about just before? I was trying to disentangle something.
I said actions speak louder than words.
There's a lot of we've spoken a lot about. Dude, this is a good one. We always speak about vulnerability like it's a talking word. I think because it's in mental health, it's like open up, speak up. That's all we get bombarded with. It's like vulnerability is about opening up. I think we've misinterpreted the word. Vulnerability is a doing word.
It's about showing up.
Showing up the most vulnerable, scary versions of yourself, the parts that you're most afraid to show people, showing that and being yourself even when you feel the fear of being judged. That's vulnerability. It's not just talking about it, it's actually the showing and the doing. And that applies not just to speaking about things that you feel shameful, but actually being someone and doing things that scare you.
Yeah, I can say I feel joy, I feel vulnerable, I feel happy, I feel disappointed, I feel anger. But vulnerability is a word. 100%. But to be able to act on that is where it comes the power of vulnerability. To be able to sit uncomfortably and express your challenges, your obstacles, your good times, your low points, and what you're going through, that is vulnerability at its truest form, because you're acting on it. You're not just saying I'm being vulnerable. You're actually being vulnerable through your actions. And that's where actions speak louder than words, because you're honestly within yourself feeling vulnerable, but you're showing it. You can say you're vulnerable, but actually acting it is where the true power and authenticity of that word actually comes from, is putting it into action. And it's scary, it's uncomfortable, but it's a game changer.
100%. Any concluding thoughts?
Loved it. Thank you. I just love how we just came in and talked and having a conversation with you, man. Like, this is the real dopamine. People talk about the dopamine, man. I'm feeling buzzing. This is connecting, like we talked about with you. That's where I feel that I'm just feeling warm, love, happy, joy, grateful to be with you, sitting here having a conversation, but also, man, more grateful for our relationship and watching you grow, get better, develop, optimize, self-develop, wherever you want to go with it. But, man, I love you, bro, and truly, I mean that.
Love you too. Thanks for coming on. We'll have to get you back on more regularly.
After this, when you get 0 stars and no one wants to listen to me ramble on.
Nah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing those things. I think just having these conversations, like I've found over the podcasting journey, like it's like when I even went to 2 episodes a week, like you're just pumping out, can I get new guests? Can I get new guests? But something I've really enjoyed is just like taking the pressure off to have the conversation. So easy to pigeonhole yourself and put the pressure on, like it needs to perform this way. Conversations need to flow this way. But the more I come back to my purpose of just having a real conversation, I feel like it ends up just being so much more valuable and relatable without even trying. That, to its nature, isn't that the premise of authenticity? It's free flowing. It's lacking that pressure that you put on it. That's the whole point of it.
Completely agree, bro.
All right. Thanks, Brayden.
Thanks, bro.